Good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, May 1st, 3:37 p.m., and I hereby call to order the City of Memphis Budget Committee. Please call the roll.
Councilman Jones?
Here.
Councilman Warren?
President.
Chair Carla? Chair Carla.
Present. Oh, please show the record that we have Councilman Smiley, Councilman Morgan, and Ford is making his way up. So we'll do it that way. Frank Dealmaker Colvette is coming up. All right, colleagues, so here's the jam, and I'm sorry we're getting started late here. You can blame me. We're gonna try and do something a little different than we've done in years past, which is try and take the CIP and operating budget together and let the administration kind of get through their spiel and then into the numbers faster, and then try and deal with Q&A. And we can stop and change it if this doesn't work, but trying to get to more in-depth Q&A along the way so that wrap up is a little more fluid. I think what happens some years is you'll put a note down and then a couple weeks will go by and then we'll get to wrap up and people kind of forget about it. If this does not work, we will change this midstream, but we're going to give it the old college try. Does anybody have any questions before we turn it over? All right. First up, we've got an overview of CIP from the Finance Division, followed by the overview of the operating budget. Chief Ford, good to see you. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon, council members. Shirley Ford, Chief Financial Officer, City of Memphis, 125 North Main. Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon and to provide an overview of the proposed CIP Capital Improvement Program for the City of Memphis for the fiscal year 2024. For some of us, this will be our last CIP budget that we will be sharing together, and I wanted just to take a moment to thank you for your collaboration and your partnership. And it's been my honor to serve this administration, this council, and our city. So as the mayor shared with you during his budget presentation, he is proposing a CIP spending budget that aligns with and supports the city's capital needs for successful continued operations and continued promotion of economic and community development. And as always, we will continue to maintain the mission-critical projects, maintenance, major modification, cover lines, necessary capital acquisition for vehicles, and projects mandated by law. The mayor has proposed the continuation of those pivotal projects which the city has previously committed to funding, those which are essential to the health and welfare of our communities, such as fire stations and fire station improvements, new libraries, new community centers, engineering cover lines, technology initiatives, park improvements, as well as the continuation of a paving cover line. This year's proposed budget also contains a few new projects that complement the reoccurring projects and the continued execution of Memphis 3.0 and the home stretch for the Accelerate Memphis project plans. The mayor has recommended a capital improvement program budget for general obligation bond support of $95.9 million. This is just our table of contents of the presentation that you have before you. So on slide 3, the deliberation of recommended spending encompasses the guidance of the mayor and the participation of the division managers, and I'd like to thank them all for their invaluable service and commitment to the development of the CIP proposed budget. The CIP GEO bond spending is at $95,915,750,000. I'll get it out. $95,915,750. Thank you. The FY24 proposed CIP spending for sewer fund is $108,500,000, and the FY24 proposed CIP budget for stormwater spending is $40,612,000, bringing our total to $240,027,750. This is an approximate $51 million decrease from FY23, primarily due to the comparison of prior year, which included a $20 million state grant and the council approved one-time spending of $26 million from the general fund unallocated fund balance. So this is kind of just a definition. We go through this every year, but basically what you're approving for us is a one-year allocation. This allows for the funds, the allocation for the first year of the program, or in cases of carryover projects to continue. And again, our request for this year is approximately $96 million. This is the GO bond eligibility. We again present this with every presentation just so there is a record of the eligibility requirements. So this slide just kind of recaps some of the planned spending, of which $95.9 million is approximately $700,000 increase over the FY23 GO bond spending. So I only have 15 minutes, but just please allow me to put this in a little bit of perspective for you. In 2015, the city was still in the process of rebuilding from the fiscal and financial devastation of FY13, where the general fund suffered a loss of $25.7 million, had only $56 million of unassigned fund balance, and had an ADC of $90.4 million with contributions of only $19 million toward that requirement. We were amid the restructure of the pension and OPEB plans, and concurrently, the city was facing significant increases in its payments due to previous debt issuances, which contained delayed payment provisions. At that time, administration proposed to the state comptroller a restructure of the city's debt service fund, and the restructure of the next 10 years of debts was approved to accommodate a leveling out of debt service payments, and only extended the 10-year payments by 1 year, and that is into 2026. And since that time, the city has managed within the available debt capacity as a result of that restructure. And with your approval, the city has managed to operate and execute within the parameters of the city's restructured debt funding. So thank you very much for that. This slide represents the current annual retirement of GO bond principal payments. And as you know, the arrow was added for emphasis. Thank you. And in alignment of the retirement of principal debt, the city, with your guidance and approval, has proven that the plan presented in 2015 was reasonable and appropriate under the circumstances. And you and this administration have maintained the trust and confidence of the State Comptroller's Office that the city of Memphis can adhere to a structural plan of spending for the benefit of its physical operations and for the benefit of its citizens. Again, this is just the annual principal payments, and we try not to borrow more than we're paying back. This one, as you know, is my favorite slide presentation that I've been sharing with you for years now. I added a little bit of emphasis on this instead of an arrow. But this represents the scheduling of principal and interest of debt retirement through 2048. And as we've discussed on many occasions, special note is the significant decline of GO bond debt service in 2027. And as we continue to strategically plan for the next couple of years, everyone is anxiously awaiting for the time when we hit our debt cliff. And while we have experienced some slowdown on project completions as a result of the impact of the pandemic and some related supply chain and employment challenges, we are anticipating that the fiscal year 24 will be very busy and we'll be meeting and surpassing pre-pandemic activity levels. This shows the current rating status of the city's general obligation bond. This review was completed again in 2023. Each time we issue bonds, we must sit and go through a rating. And if we are issuing bonds in this particular year, we are also required to go through a rating just to maintain where we are financially with our rating agencies. This is some of the highlights for the guiding principles in the development of the FY24 budget. In addition to our ongoing spending, the city is continuing to maximize and leverage other funding sources. You've worked through us on a lot of those, ARPA, Accelerate Memphis, and the state funding that we received last year. And we do that to gain the maximum impact of our CIP spend across all of our communities and across our city. And as the mayor mentioned in his budget presentation, the pre-planned FY24 budget, which we actually planned last year, was restructured to accommodate a new and important element. And the new public safety capital initiative will provide MPD with an intentional investment in the future of law enforcement, public safety, and transparency in its field operations. This budget also includes the much-needed planning for the new Rains Police Precinct, a plan to develop a replacement for the old Levi Branch Library, a new parks commitment to the Red Zone Opportunity Zone, and a pledge to the Whitehaven STEM infrastructure. Also this year, we are converting specific request arrangements to a dedicated cover line for MRPP as we did for the convention center. So instead of having to bring tiny projects and look at 5 or 6 projects, we'll provide a cover line for them to be requested as needed. We are currently requesting that at approximately $250,000. We'll see how that works. This is just a summary of the CIP budget for all funding sources. We are at $245 million. This includes all your GO bonds, capital PAYGO for the stormwater and sewer, as well as the sewer revenue bonds and stormwater revenue bonds, and loan funding provided through the water. This slide provides a chart depiction of the sources of funds for all funding sources, indicating that the GO bond funding represents approximately 39%. Yes, they will all be here explaining in detail their request for FY24. So in summary for the GO bond allocation, I just wanted to share with you the percentages of divisions year over year. Numbers can vary due to the initiation, delay, or completion of projects, but as you can see in FY24, your largest percentage is by general services at 24.5 million, then closely followed by police services, public works, and parks. So with the police services, there is the Axon initiative that Chief Davis and her team will be providing detail related to that. And just as a reminder, that is a 5-year, $55 million project. And she will be explaining all the detail related to that. So you can anticipate to see police services number continue to be in a high percentage of our GO bond allocations. So I'd like to thank Mayor Strickland and this administration for the leadership and guidance that's provided for our proposed budget that hopefully makes strategic, targeted investments in our infrastructure and continues to address the important initiatives that provide these vital services throughout our community. I'd also like to thank you, Council, for your partnership and collaboration. And I missed you earlier when I just wanted to say thank you again for everything that we have done over our last years together, and to reaffirm to you that this administration's commitment to continuing to work together for the betterment of our city, our community, and our citizens. So as the division leaders bring to you their proposed FY24 budgets for your review, consideration, and approval, we thank you for your time, your resources, and your commitment to our continued success. And I might have run just right at 15 minutes.
No, I think it's perfect. Perfect. Chief Ryan, did you have any just additional comments? All right. And colleagues, I know we just got a quick overview of the CIP just to follow up on what Chief Ford is saying. Remember, each and every division will be coming back, so please take time over the next day or so. I know tomorrow, today's intent was to be light because we have a long day tomorrow. Audible groan. So please take a look, and if things are coming up early on, please have your staff members either email me, Chairman Jones, and or the division head that you need help with. Other than that, let's move into any comments before we keep going? Okay. And one more note about the schedule. Obviously, we're talking about CIP, which is our form of debt and cash. Chief Ford and her team have agreed graciously to come back on May 9th to talk about other pieces of debt that we don't usually get into, but are part of the whole picture, revenue bonds and things like that we stand behind, just so everybody understands where other cash is going and how we're funding certain projects, especially with what is coming around the bend post July 1 from the state government. All right. Chief Ford, going to take us into the overview of the operating budget.
Okay, so this one might be a little more than 15 minutes, but I'm going to try, okay? So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. And as Mayor Strickland shared with you last week, he has proposed a general fund operating budget of approximately $792 million. You should have received your proposed books and have the detailed information available to you. If you don't have them, please let us know. We can make sure that you get them, or your staff members, anyone else who might need them. So divisions will be coming to budget hearings for the next couple of weeks to present their respective budgets, and it's apparent that solutions to our complex problems are rarely contained within a single division or even with local government alone. The development of the budget presented to you came after serious deliberations, financial analysis, and comprehensive strategic planning in alignment with other funding sources. The FY24 budget was developed as a comprehensive whole, each division playing an important part of the development as resources were reevaluated and adjusted within the divisions to provide a comprehensive budget that the mayor believes is fair to our employees and meets the needs of our citizens in a meaningful way. So during the early development of the budget, the mayor shared his guiding principles as the benchmark for his assessment and the ultimate development of our proposed budget that he presented to you. Every year he gives me more or less marching orders. This is what I want to see in the proposed budget. Always first is the actuarially determined contribution, which legally must be at a 100% required funding level. This year, the impact to the general fund was a $2,452,000 increase in the ADC for the general fund portion. And also included in this year, too, is the FY23 negotiated and council approved increases for MPD. That was 5% or approximately $9 million. And also improved in FY23 was an additional $1.5 million for crafts and other associations as a result of the labor negotiations. For FY24, an early negotiated 5% increase for fire was accepted by IAFF, and this 5% equated to approximately $7.2 million. However, after deliberations and discussions with MPA and IAFF, the administration collaborated with those associations to devise a plan that we believe will provide the much-needed enhancement to the base salaries of our police officers and firefighters. This plan will convert the current 9% retention bonus to a permanent 9% salary increase. We are confident that based on the revenue trends for the 2019 Public Safety Tax Referendum Fund, that this permanent change in classification of funding is not only sustainable, but would also provide a necessary and essential element to the recruitment and retainment of public safety personnel for the city of Memphis. This proposed initiative has been approved by the state comptroller. The mayor and I both met with him, explained what we wanted to do, and he assured us that he was on board with that and would give it his blessing. The additional increase will bring the FY24 base salaries for police and fire to 14% for FY24. The mayor has also proposed a 2% increase for general employees with an estimated cost of $2.2 million. And with these considerations, the mayor also required a proposed budget calculation that would provide sufficient funding to meet the city's core operating priorities and mission-critical initiatives without an increase in the property tax. So those were kind of the guidelines that he gave as the beginning and benchmark for his proposed budget, and that is what he has proposed to you in his budget of last week. Now, for a little more detail, this compares the FY23 adopted budget to the FY24 proposed budget by revenue and expense categories. And as you can see, the revenues and contributions are going from $750 million to $792, as are the expenditures, moving from $750 to $792. Those are the categories, and as we go through some of this, and I'm sure you will have some questions, I'll be giving some breakdown of what the movement represents between these two adopted budget and the proposed budget. This kind of, we're going to talk a little bit about revenues first, and we'll move into expenditures, but this provides a summary of the revenue highlights for the FY24 budget development. And while the sales tax categories are the highest percentages of increases, many revenue line items were projected with stabilized post-pandemic projections. You will see that specifically in parks, as you see activities returning to normal, and you will see changes in expenses and revenues related to those categories. The local sales tax category is budgeted for $18.4 million, or a 3.8% increase. This category includes property taxes, local sales tax, franchise taxes, business taxes, and beer sales taxes. Property taxes are basically budgeted flat. The big move is in your local sales tax. It continues to trend high and is expected to be $11 million over the FY23 adopted budget and a $4.4 million increase above the FY22 actuals. Those revenues continue to be trend very high. There's also a $2.5 million increase in the mixed drink tax and a modest increase in the alcohol beverage inspection fee. In the next category, state taxes, this is budgeted to increase by $7.8 million, or 10.6% over the FY23 adopted budget. This category includes the state sales tax, state shared beer tax, alcoholic beverage tax, and the state special petroleum product tax. The increase in this category is, again, primarily driven by the upward trend in sales tax for our local portion, which is budgeted for FY24 at $75 million, a $7 million increase over the FY23 budget. In the next category, charges for services, this is up approximately $5.8 million, or 14.7% over the FY23 budget. And again, these are largely due to the return of parks activity to pre-pandemic levels. Parks has experienced a return to normalization and an increase, even though the Audubon is closed for renovation. So Director Walker is very excited to talk to you about all the people who are now playing golf again. Some other material revenue lines that are budgeted include a $5.8 million increase in investment income. So even though it hurts in other places, there is an upside to the increase in interest rates. A $14.5 million sales tax referendum transfer in to offset healthcare premiums for MPD and MFD. We will talk about that as we talk about Fund 245. Also, a $13.4 million sales tax referendum transfer in for street maintenance budget relief to the general fund. There's a 6.6 allocation of assigned fund balance, and we are going to talk about the assigned fund balance in just a minute. And 29.3 of the sales tax referendum transfer in for recovery of 9% salary increase for police and fire. So in other words, the general fund for this 9% increase will be budget neutral. The 9% increase will be funded from Fund 245, converting what was previously being paid out in a retention bonus to a permanent 9% increase. So this slide is a depiction of the percentages of the source of funds by category. As you can see, local taxes is at 64.2%. And because of the transfers in from the sales tax referendum fund, it now ranks kind of the highest, where state taxes has always been our next highest. But that transfer in is influenced by Fund 245. But and then our state taxes, you can see, are also about 10%. The other pieces are smaller. Just wanted you to see that. Sometimes it visually makes a big difference. So this slide provides a summary of the expenditure highlights for the FY24 budget. The proposed FY24 expenditure budget of $792 million includes a 14% proposed raise for all police and fire, a $1.5 million in approved labor negotiation increases from FY23, and a proposed 2% increase for general employees, a $6 million increase in employer premiums and other costs related to employee health care, and our HR division will be going in depth in that during their presentation. We also have a normalization of expenditures post-pandemic and other general line item variances year over year. But I will tell you some of the noted increases. These are not all of them. I didn't go through every single line, but that is in your proposed book. But $25.5 million are the proposed raises for MPD. That includes the 5% proposed by the mayor and the conversion of the 9%. A $20 million proposed increase for MFD. That also includes a 5% that was proposed by the mayor and the 9% conversion. The $1.5 million in council-approved negotiated raises for the various associations, and a $2.2 million proposed raise for our general employees. The $6 million increase in employer portion of the healthcare cost. We also have a $3.4 million increase in our shop charges and our shop fuel charges. We have a $1.6 million increase in lawsuits, insurance, and claims. This estimate is provided by our legal department. We have a $1.9 million increase in part-time salaries, increased security, which was primarily at the library, and across the board increase in OJI expenditures, or on-the-job injury expenditures, across the organization. We have $2 million included for the incurrence of expenditures for elections coming in our coming year. We have also experienced increases across the board in personal computer software, in some categories, medical supplies, specifically for fire and animal services, chemicals for parks and public works and engineering, and utilities across the board. And as we bring new buildings on and new facilities on, our utility costs are going to increase. So this slide is just a breakdown of expenditures by category, both in dollar and percentages. And you can see personnel is at 72.8%. With $576.6 million. followed by materials and supplies at 21.1%, with $167,095,340. The other amounts are somewhat smaller. The State Street Aid Recovery, just as a reminder, that is held in a separate fund and is allocated at the end of the year as appropriate for street and recoveries for engineering, public works, and for MATA. The transfers out are kind of the same and flat as they have been for the last couple of years. This is a list of the division expenditures by allocation, by division for FY24. And as you can see, police and fire, or public safety, represents about $506 million, or 64% of the expenditure allocation. Parks is allocated at 47.7, or approximately 6.02, and the library is allocated at 24.8 million, or 3.3%. But this is a list of expenditures by division. So real quickly, the structural realignment, that's where we have a change that transfers a program or a person to another division year over year. There were structural changes within service centers of the fire division, police division, information technology division, and parks division, but there were no cross-fund structural changes or cross-divisional changes programmed for FY24. So our ISL, or our increased service level, that is any time we change a program or a person to a division as compared to the prior year. And due to the nature of the vacancies across the organization, the library contains the only request for our ISL, or increased service level. This request is for 9 employees to onboard in Q4 of FY24 for the new Melrose Library, and that cost is estimated at approximately $122,500. This is just a chart of the ADC, or the actuarially determined contributions, and actual contributions for all funds. When I give you numbers specific to general funds, but this is for all funds, just so that you can see. We've come a long way from the financial challenges of 2013, and at the high point in 2014, with a contribution requirement of $96 million, and where the city was only contributing 19.4, or about 20% of that amount that was required. 2020 was the first year of the city's requirement of 100% funding. This was followed by a 5-year phase-in plan of progressive funding to get us to that 100% level, and that was a state requirement that we must do that. And once we met that in 2020, it can never not be funded at 100%. So that is why, as always, the first item that we review for our budget for the coming year. Just as kind of a reference point for that, in FY22, the pension fund received $74.5 million in contributions, 54.5 of that from the employer contributions, and 20 million of that from the plan members, or the employees. The city dispersed 183 million in retirement benefits and refunded 17.3 million of contributions. The gap between the contributions and the benefit payments must be met by the prudent investment of the retirement fund assets. As you know, market changes can have an impactful effect on those investments, and as such, the ADC is always our top priority for any budget development. But with your guidance and approval, the city has moved beyond those challenges and employed long-term solutions to address fundamental operational requirements, such as meeting the ADC, to ensure that there is a sustainable retirement plan, looking at progressive plans for healthcare and wellness, which is our next slide, and addressing the debt structure and funding capacity that has plagued the city for years, which we discussed in our CIP. So our healthcare claims for active employees, as I mentioned earlier, the Human Resources Division will be providing detailed information regarding the healthcare fund during their presentation. But just as a reminder, due to some of the changes in plan offerings and the continued coverage of Le Bonheur as an in-network, the city is estimating to incur an approximate $6 million in increased healthcare-related expenditures. These estimates are based on actual experience in the healthcare trends. And as I think was shared in the Healthcare Oversight Committee last week, the city is planning to go out to RFP with its medical plan. So it is hopeful that the $6 million is not a real hard number and that we'll be able to make some changes for that, at least for part of our fiscal year. The next slide is the general fund unassigned fund balance. And this represents the unassigned portion of the fund balance for the general fund. And just as a reminder from last year, the FY21, as you can see the huge increase there, adopted budget, it was impacted by this unassigned balance was impacted by several factors. One, an extremely favorable variance of local sales tax over the FY21 adopted budget, and $22 million favorable variance in state shared sales tax revenue over the FY21 adopted budget. We also had $9 million in CARES Act federal funding that was offsetting materials and supplies for that year. In FY22, the unassigned fund balance increased by $2.2 million, bringing it from 106.3 to 108.6. But I will also remind you, as part of the FY23, there was an approved spend of $6 million of that. The total approved spend was $26 million of capital pay-go for last year, but $6 million of that came from the unassigned fund balance, which currently leaves us at approximately $102 million in unassigned fund balance. The FY24 budget is at break even and does not include a contribution to or from assigned fund balance. So the 2019 sales tax referendum, let's talk about the FY24 budget impact of that fund into the general fund. So for FY24 and forward, the sales tax referendum fund will allocate, or is planned to allocate, approximately $29.3 million to the general fund as a salary recovery offset to replace the 9% retention bonus with a 9% permanent salary increase for MPD and MFD category employees, 16.4 of that for police and 12.8 of that for fire. Also for FY24 and forward, the fund will provide an additional $1.9 million to offset the estimated cost of allowing police and fire category new hires to select between the 2012 pension plan or the 2016 pension plan. Also for FY24, the sales tax referendum special revenue fund will allocate $14.5 million to the general fund, enabling an offset of healthcare premium cost of active MPD and MFD category employees. Also for FY24, the fund will allocate $6.5 million to the pre-K fund. And as you remember, we passed an ordinance last year that allows the Fund 245 to fully fund the pre-K fund at least through FY27. For FY24, the fund will provide $13.4 million towards street maintenance initiatives in the general fund to support the operational budget in the general fund. Currently, the FY24 revenue is proposed at $76 million. And as we discussed, some of that is already allocated toward salary increases, pre-K funding, street maintenance, and additional 27.2 toward pension restoration, OPEB expenditures, and healthcare initiatives. So just to kind of give it a little summary to give it some perspective, and when Finance presents their budget, Fund 245 is considered a special revenue fund, and the budget will be presented. Oh, so sorry. What happened? Sorry about that. I will be presenting the full budget at this, but just to kind of give you some perspective on that. Through FY22, the fund generated approximately $162 million in revenues. FY23 was budgeted at 70.1 for this current fiscal year, and right now is forecasted to be about 73.8, might even be 74. As of FY22, the fund had provided $14 million toward the annual pension, healthcare, and OPEB cost for police and fire. Also at the end of FY22, this plan has provided $34 million to pension, healthcare, and OPEB reserves that is just sitting in the reserve account for those specific items. Also through FY23, this plan supports the benefit for active police and fire in the aggregate of $110.3 million. This is through FY23. The direct health care benefit offset from the inception through FY23 is $46.5 million. The retention bonus plan, which continues through FY23 at $58.4 million, and recruitment initiatives of $5.4 million. Also through FY23, taking it through the FY22 and what is planned for FY23 and was budgeted and approved, there is an allocation for street maintenance and pre-K programming in an aggregate amount of $62.1 million, 47.6 of that into street maintenance and 14.5 of that into pre-K funding. So this is a list of the budgeted funds. These are the funds that are required by the state to have a budget to them. All of these will come before you. Many of the special revenue funds fall into the finance division, but several of them obviously kind of stand out on their own. Solid waste, the HUD, the hotel motel tax are mine, but the drug enforcement fund and electronic traffic citation and fire and metro alarms will be presented in their respective divisions. You also have a budget provided to you from finance for the debt service fund. The enterprise funds, sewer and stormwater, will come from Director Connect. The internal service funds, fleet maintenance from GS, health insurance from HR, and unemployment compensation is pretty simple, and that will be covered under finance. And then our fiduciary funds, the only ones that we are required to present a budget for is the library retirement fund. As you know, that is a closed fund, and then the OPEB fund. So this budget, like all others, was a collaboration with the mayor, my colleague, CEO Ryan here, members of the senior leadership team, and the finance team. And I'd like to thank the budget team, Walter Person, Cameron Kennedy, Anita Taylor, and Peggy Smith-Porter for their countless hours of working in conjunction with every division, their division directors and their budget liaisons. It's their job to take the mayor's numbers and initiatives and transform them into accurate and readable formats and reports for you. This collaboration of personnel numbers was provided by HR, legal estimates provided by the city attorney division, and service expenditures provided by general services, along with the information provided by the other divisions. So in closing, I'd like to thank Mayor Strickland for his leadership and guidance that resulted in a proposed balanced budget. I appreciate his confidence in me as the CFO of our great city. Balancing the general fund is not an easy task. There's a finite amount of revenue and an infinite amount of requests and expenditures. And we've worked closely with the division directors to share information related to any readjustment of their requested funds. And while their initial focus is on each division and their own division, each one professionally recognizes that a balanced budget must comprehensively address each division for the benefit of the entire city. It has been my honor to work alongside you for the last 6 years. You've worked with me to provide an environment of mutual respect and communication that has enabled us to move forward. And during the pandemic, you navigated through some uncertain times, but you took the necessary steps to reach a short-term solution that would benefit and consistent with a long-term financial foundation that we hope will endure for a long time. So thank you for that. And let's not forget, those were a couple of years of budgets that were very difficult, and we had to make a lot of difficult decisions. But now it's your obligation to approve a budget that you believe is the next best step forward for our great city. It's my obligation to provide the most accurate, transparent information you need to make the budget decision that will guide us for the next year and hopefully for the years to come. So as they bring you, each division brings you their operating budgets, thank you again for your review, your consideration, your approval. You also dedicate your time and resources and commitment to working together for the betterment of our community, and I thank you for that. With that, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Chief Ford. We've got a few members in the queue. You made a comment which reminded me to ask you, where are we on the annual review, the audit?
The audit is published.
Is it? Have we gotten books?
If you do not have printed books, it is been published. It's on our website, but I'll make sure you have printed books if you do.
I always look forward to that, especially the back section, the supplemental sections.
Oh, the statistical stuff, right?
Yeah, well, honestly, council members, if you want to know where the most helpful information is, go read the back half, because it's got all the historical information. It gives you the best timeline look. I've got Vice Chairman Smiley, Councilman Warren, and Councilman Morgan in the queue, and then Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Chairman Carlisle. So I have I guess a general question. I guess I ask more nuanced questions in some of the other meetings. I know that you stated that, specifically as it relates to parks, I know that you stated that programming was back to pre-pandemic levels, and I see there's an increase in the general funding allocated for parks. Does this current budget allocate sufficient funding to allow the community centers to stay open past 5 p.m. during the summers? If you're confused, I will ask a very specific question.
No, I understand. No, I completely understand your question. And I hope that as Director Walker brings that forward to you, you will see an increase in his services, both for youth and community. But I can look up a dollar amount for you, but there was a planning for that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a very specific question. So I've been made aware that this budget as it stands, community centers during the summer months when young people have ample time will be closing at 5 p.m.
I do not believe that is the case. I don't believe that community centers are currently closing at 5, so I want to get that, yes.
Okay, and if this budget does not provide adequate funding for parks so they can stay open to at least until 8 p.m., can we get that done? Or do you want the council to do it?
I can tell you that the parks in their part-time salaries, which is where the personnel related to those activities, has an increase of $1,256,368.
I mean, that doesn't really answer my question. Only question I have is I want assurance that this budget allows parks to stay open, community centers to stay open past 5 p.m. I've been told that during the summer months, they'll be closed at 5 p.m., particularly in Glenview neighborhood. So I'm assuming if it happens in Glenview, it's going to be happening in community centers across the city.
You will have an answer on what time community centers close before we close out today.
That's what I'd love to hear.
Right. You'll have an answer today before we close out today.
Okay,
Yeah, I think, and I'll just add to that, I think generally, I can't imagine there's a member here that doesn't want to know when. So if we could get a schedule I'd like to know now, but what I'd like to know is the schedule for each community center, anticipated schedule for each community center between now and the end of the calendar year. And then library hours too, because I know in parks vary, because we've got community centers that can stay open late. Most of our parks, I think, have an established closing time of sunset if it's not earlier. And then what else do we have? What else do we say?
So I have some very angry community members, and they're really concerned about this particular issue. And a lot of them know where I live, so that means I get nice little notes in my mailbox. So, so for me, speaking, I think we can't have the conversation of increasing public safety budget without talking about what else are we doing. And I think when we talk about what else are we doing, are we providing safe spaces for our young people to go into community centers? So I think they work hand in hand. Hopefully the information that these young ladies told me were inaccurate, but I want some assurances from the administration.
We'll verify that with you. We're texting with and Director Walker right now to check that out for you.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have a really fun budget season.
Well, and to our staff too, I guess I'll say to Brianna, who's your Meredith. If we just send a programming, I'd like to know, and I know this will come, but just to give those agencies, I know we got community services today, but parks in particular, like what their summer programming, some of those activities are going to look like, just to get a flavor of some of that stuff.
All of the information is online. I was just checking while we talked to make sure. So if you look at Memphis Parks, you'll see the hours for all community services, all community centers, and they mostly close at 8 p.m. During the winter months, they may close at sundown. So
Sure.
It depends on when the sunset is. But it's on the website, Memphis Parks. And also the libraries, all of their hours is on the online as well. And I think they close around 7 or 8, depending on the day and depending on the branch.
So are you suggesting that it's not going to change during the summer? from 8, it's going to stay at 8 o'clock. It's not going to go to 5 o'clock.
I will make sure, but that is what is published right now on the website. So that's my intention for it to be.
I have some very
Nick is sitting somewhere in an office sweating right now.
I have some very concerned folks who utilize their community center extremely disturbed by what they were informed. So I would like some clarity.
We'll get it squared away. Anything else, Vice Chairman? Dr. Warren, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This morning in Commercial Appeal, there was some articles about what was going on with the way the state was allowing local jurisdictions to establish their tax rate. And supposedly we were going to be losing $25 million or something. I mean, a significant amount is what it said. Can you talk about that and how that's built into this budget and what we can do to counteract that if we need to?
Yes, thank you. So currently there is nothing built into our budget for this, and here's why. There is a change to the ratio for state assessed property, okay? But the ratio is for the state assessed property, and that's like telecommunication towers, airport, rail, those types of things. So we did talk to, the mayor and I both met with the comptroller about this because we were very concerned that it appeared that there could be a potential, multi-million-dollar hit to the property tax in the general fund. However, the other missing piece of this calculation has not occurred yet. In December, we received the assessment of those properties, and the assessment is part of that calculation. We have met with the county trustee's office regarding this. They are concerned, and so as Mayor Strickland and I met with Comptroller Mumpower, his recommendation was don't do anything to your budget right now until you see what the assessment is going to be. So in other words, if you have a piece of property that was assessed 4 years ago, right? Because we only do that every 4 years. And your house is $200,000. But all around you, houses and things like that are selling for 230 or 280, right? What they do is they compare those and try to equalize out the state assessed properties compared to what's going on there. So it's.
I followed you right up until that point. So let's slow it down. I mean,
this may be a bigger conversation.
So, and I'm happy to come back if you would like for me to come back in committee to discuss what we think. I mean, we've met. I've met with the treasurer and with Deputy Walker related to this. We've met with the trustee's office. We talked to the comptroller, and I think the primary concern here is this ratio, which is right now estimated to be approximately 77%, I think. The assessment that goes along with that ratio has not occurred yet.
So,
and they are anticipating.
The bottom line is we're thinking that maybe there's going to be enough rise in the property assessment that will make up for the loss in taxes. And this ratio is trying to figure it out based on what they think that the property tax rate's going to go up due to the value of the property. So the article in Commercial Appeal may or may not be correct as far as the amount of money we're going to be hit by.
Catherine, are you hiding back here?
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I'm just that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Good question.
And I guess the second thing had to do with just talking about Fund 245 and what it's done for us. I know we like to talk that we haven't raised taxes at all since we've been in office, but the people raise taxes, and it looks to me like that fund has been saving our tail for a little while now. And it would be nice to give it some credit and the people who back that fund some credit for what it did. And I just want to know how you feel about that.
I think this is an incredible fund. And I think what happened when this occurred, what they were trying to do was a difficult and complex issue. And the MPA and IAFF pushed it, and the people pushed it and said, yes, this is what I want to do. And I think it has been, there was a misquote in the paper, and I'm sorry if Catherine was here and whoever published this, that the associations are in charge of this fund. That is not an accurate statement, but what the associations have done with this administration, and Doug McGowan, I started meetings with them almost immediately. They have worked together with us, collaborated with us to make what they felt like what they wanted with this, and within the parameters of the referendum, things that we had been able to do. And you are absolutely correct when I tell you that starting in it, we had a little bit of actual in FY20 in our fiscal year through FY22. As I said, it was $162 million of revenue that came into that fund from FY20 through FY22. We are planning, I budgeted a lower number, but it looks like our FY23 revenue is coming in. So in answer to your question, would we be able to give a 9% retention bonus or a 9% raise to our police and fire without this fund? The answer is no.
And it's a tax, right?
Yes.
It's this tax that did that.
Yes.
And what about funding pre-K? Could we fund pre-K?
Pre-K is funded through this plan by ordinance last year through 2027.
We flip-flopped. If you remember, we flip-flopped the funding source and rolled the pilots to create the Transvision. Yes. But yeah, we would have had a massive property tax increase if we didn't have.
I mean, if you think about,
if we didn't have this fund.
Total, just what they did in actual and reserves so far through FY22, they were using approximately 48 million of that 162 million. So sitting down and working with them about what we could do, continue going on a continuing basis, the allocation to the general fund to help offset the employer portion of the healthcare premiums is huge. So $27.9 million for the last 2 years, $27.9 million for the last 2 years for FY23 and coming into plan for
our
FY24.
Employees' rates reasonable, right?
Yes.
And I
Has
guess
come
the other
into
thing
the
is
general fund.
how much extra paving have we done because of this?
So
And percentage-wise, like
okay,
5%,
so paving,
30%?
Paving. To date, there's only been about $4 million of the fund FY24 that has gone to paving. Yeah. However, a tremendous amount of capital expense went for street maintenance and for street capital. So new pavers, new stripers, new trucks, new dump trucks, all of those things that normally would occur in our CIP budget were provided through Fund 245.
Basically
yes.
like a capital pay-go.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Cash
Capital
buy.
pay-go. We paid cash.
just
We paid
last
cash for
question,
all
and
this.
I'll
Yes, sir.
looking at this pie chart, we're talking about how we get 12.7% of our money from this fund as opposed to 10% from the state. In my mind, I always have this idea that we pay a lot more to the state per person than we get back on average per person for other people in the state. Is that correct?
I do not know. I would have to get back to you
I
on
can
that.
answer that. I can answer that.
I do not know.
Yeah, Brookings published a national study that talked about cities in states as GDP generators and the return back. I'll send it to you. But the answer is we absolutely do not get that back in what you would call a fair share.
Right, so thank you. Okay, and I just want the public to have an idea of what we're doing and what we're dealing with. And again, to thank the police and fire department for pushing this tax that's done this much for our city so far. Thank you.
Chairman Jones.
Thank you. Caught me snacking. To answer your question, Councilman Warren, simple math. If you got 4 counties that have, well, 2 counties in particular that have close to 1 million people, and we are a sales tax driven state versus an income tax generated state, people, just sheer numbers, people spend more money in cities. That's how the state of Tennessee gets their money. And they dole it out to the 91 other counties that aren't as populous. When we went to, I think it was 2018, was that when we went to New Orleans? It was the guy who was over the precinct for for Bourbon Street who really made the light bulb go off in my head. He said that, he was just talking about New Orleans. He said if we got back 10% more than what we receive right now from the state, he said we wouldn't have a financial challenge whatsoever. He said New Orleans funds Louisiana, the entire state, but it's the cities here that do it. Ms. Ford, I have a question. Do we have a number? You talked about a number of first responders, police and fire that will go back to the old plan. Do we have an estimated number of how many individuals that maybe can be brought as?
I think Chief Smith has that information and we'll be presenting it with hers. And I'm sorry, I do not have it with me right now, but we'll make sure that we have that. The first time we did this, we estimated, that practically everyone would go back, right? And that did not occur, but I will get with Chief to make sure that we have the right estimates. And again, we've been working with our actuaries on this as well. So I will get back with you on
So
that.
I was trying to get an idea of what the financial impact of that would be. So if we have a number, we can extrapolate it from there.
So they have given us what they think might be an estimate based on those, at one time we make that one-time election, previously at the onset of the referendum to allow the restoration for them to choose. But then those who were hired after, I think, 2016, they were on the same plan as anyone else hired in 2016. So I think they have done a preliminary study based on what that would look like for bringing X number of people in. And right now, and I'm sorry I don't have it with me, but it was estimated at about $1.9 million a year.
Okay.
Per year.
Okay.
So, but we'll get those direct numbers to you, sir. Yes, sir.
And then there was a number that you responded to Councilman Smiley about 1.256. Was that an increase in part-time, or was that the budgeted amount for this current year?
For parks?
Yes.
That was their increase.
The increase.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. That was
Thank
an
you.
increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Please let the record show that Councilwoman Easter Thomas and Swearingen Washington have joined us as well. And I missed Logan earlier, too. I got everybody else, though. Oh, and Robinson. But she was here. She's been here a long time. Colleagues, any other questions? Oh, Councilman Morgan. Did I skip you earlier? I think so. That's on purpose.
It's hard to get attention down here on the end sometimes. So yeah, a couple of questions, comments, and requests for information. We'll start with Chief Ford. Is there any hope of getting the FY23 projected numbers during this budget season?
Yes, we are working on those right now. And as most of you who've been with me all these years, I hate giving projected numbers in May because we are so Q4 heavy in expenditures in May and June that it always kind of skews the numbers. But we're gonna give it our best shot for you, and we'll have those out to you next week.
No, and I get the numbers won't ever tell the full story. There's always context and more information behind them, but they're real helpful in terms of formulating questions as we're looking at this budget season, and sometimes they're perfectly good answers. But last year we didn't have them, and it made it really hard to kind of evaluate the proposed numbers.
Yes, sir.
And then also this would be a request, I think, to city council staff. So I was looking ahead at the executive presentation. Looks like y'all are gonna have complement numbers with each division again, as well as vacant positions. City council staff, and just say this out loud so we don't have multiple people working on the same thing. Can we compile the number of, the vacant positions for each division from last year's presentations? Because we had that exact same information. So if that's not going to be proposed to us, maybe y'all have it and it's easy to click a button and send it to us. If not, we can just kind of search and find the old presentation. So if we saw that there were 20 vacancies in Public Works and now there are still 22 vacancies in Public Works, I think that would beget more questions.
It's always Public Works that takes the short.
We will.
I was picking on them because they have quite a few vacancies traditionally.
They do have quite a few vacancies, and we do have that. We do not have all the divisions presentation, the FY24, but I have all the FY23, and we can update. Oh, we already updated it to show it year over year. Did we? I don't think it has the vacancies year over year. Okay, so we updated our format, so we should be able to provide that information.
Okay.
I know we can, I have a copy of all the FY23 presentations. We can go through and formulate that for you and then compare as we go. Yes, sir.
If you can disseminate that
Sure.
to us, that'd be terrific.
Absolutely.
The other thing, as I'm going through the compliment, and this is just kind of a personal quest of mine, and because I know we don't use the attrition number anymore, but it still exists as a counting measure. We just don't put it as a line item. Councilwoman Robinson does not want to see that number. Is it possible for me to see the attrition number for in the 8th year of budget? I'd like to be able to if we're going through those compliments and trying to sort out positions that are continually being funded and then attrition back out, I would just enjoy the project of trying to take some of these variables off of our budgeting board that don't need to be there, that are every year being budgeted and taken out through attrition. I think you get where I'm coming from on this.
I do, and thank you, Councilman Morgan. So when we receive the position control reports from HR, then Cameron Kennedy, our budget manager, will sit down with each division and go, okay, is this really what your position control looks like, right? And so we'll go through and mark out those positions. Now, what we do never happened before, right? So I have an attrition number where I don't know that I've ever even had an attrition number before, but we're in the big divisions where it is really material, in our police and public works and even some in our general services. And as we're seeing vacancies rise, quite frankly, across almost every division. Yes.
Well, and that's what I said. This is going to be an
Yep.
irregular year, especially for appointed positions where people may leave for other opportunities,
Yes.
and it's going to be easier for y'all to temporarily fill that spot with somebody that's already there rather than an additional hire who wants to come with the uncertainty. And then also for the new, but
We're
it
passing a
continues-
budget for the new mayor too.
But it continues into the new mayor who might not be able to fill every single position day one, January 1st. So just take into that account
And-
I'd rather do it on the front end rather than the maneuvering on the back end.
And also, Councilman Morgan, when we're looking through those position controls, we also compare it to actual current salary spending. So, for instance, we took the first payroll of April, and to see where that would land us at year end, because we're working on forecast numbers for you, but just to see, is that representative of what it previously was in the earlier months? Because the height, you get a higher vacancy, your salaries go down. It can skew your, if you try to look at what it is on average can change. And so we'll be happy to share that information with you to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. And then
I'd like to note something there really quickly as well. I just want to know that the benefit of the 2% increase is to help us when we're seeing employees leave for other opportunities. It's our goal to also recruit more. Now, we've been doing a lot of recruiting and having job fairs, and we're planning more of them. So the budget is positioned so that it can absorb those months where we may not see folks in the seats yet, but we're actively looking, and we'll be actively looking at the start of the year to fill those roles, especially with the salary increases that we're expecting to, hopefully with your approval, be able to place in those salaries. Just want to note that.
And just one last point to my colleagues as we go through the process this year. Every year there's 10, 20, $50 million worth of things that we'd like to add to this budget. There always is. That's the curse of government, that there are more needs than resources that we have, and we're trying to figure out what to do or best distribute the limited resources we have to address the problems and responsibilities that we have. So my one request and recommendation, look, I've probably been guilty of this in the past as well. If there is something that we want to add to the budget, that this needs to be done in order to keep community centers open later, or we want a raise for this or an additional number of cars for that, that's the easy part. The hard part is trying to figure out what that offsetting cut is, revenue or potential tax increase. And so usually what happens, we say we want $5 million for this, and then we tell the administration to figure it out. And I would hope this time, if you're willing to break the budget, also have an idea or bring an idea to the table in terms of a recommendation of what you think this increase is, that this increased expense is more important than. What are we spending on that we don't need to be? And to put an idea on the table as well, I think that would be a fuller discussion, because they're all things that we want to add. But the finding 7 votes for what to take away or to cut is quite difficult. But I think it's a mature conversation. I think we can have it rather than just trying to kick it to the administration. This is really our budget. When we vote on this, we're responsible for it, and it's not the mayor's budget anymore. And I think that would be a step towards taking a little bit more ownership of the decisions involved in it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I've got Councilwoman Robinson and then Chairman Jones. Okay. Councilwoman?
Thank you. What is the current inflation rate?
Over year? Well, if you skip the last 2 years, I mean, it's 7.5%.
Can y'all help me understand how 2% increase going to help us overcome that inflation rate and try to attract people to our organization? Makes sense. It's got to make sense. And how does that impact our retirees? Not the retirees that are making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month. I'm talking about the ones who are making less than $2,000 a month and trying to live. Let's make sense of that first for people. That's a question. It's a real question.
I'd like to answer it this way, Councilwoman Robinson. So we, as an organization, we're also experiencing cost increases with our fuel, with our shop charges. Just the cost of doing business has gone up for us as well. And we've plugged those dollars in, and where we could find increases for salaries as well, we've done what we could to make those increases happen. So this budget reflects our ability to do that at a 2% level. And that's just with the way that the budget is set, that's where we are on our ability to do that. Now, I think we've done a great job with our fire and police, to bring their salaries up. And I think this year with the 2% increase over last year, I think it's increased even more from last year's perspective to this year. So we have nudged it up a bit more. And we have also done market studies on some positions where we've seen the need, where we've really lost a person here or there because of the salary that was in place there. So we've done not only this overall increase, but we've done some targeted wage reviews as well with the staff.
Okay. So you're saying that there are some positions that we really looked at the salary and compared it in the market, and we're going to make them market rates. Is that correct?
We have done that with some targeted
compensation study every year.
Right, correct.
So
if you looked at finance and engineering in particular, like we have a competition issue with the private market, which is why it is always painful. And then we end up having to hire those private firms to come back under contract. And so we try and make up for it for things that the private market can't offer, like really good benefits and compensation structures on health insurance and deductibles. But your point is I hear you. Your point is well taken on cost of living increases versus what they're going to receive this year. And I think we'll have to take a closer look at that.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate the question to Councilwoman Robinson. As we have had trouble filling positions, we ask for HR to give us an equity review, and they may come back and say, yes, your comptroller should be making $145,000 a year. And if you can make that work in your budget, that's what you can offer one. But we also have to be able to make it work within our budget. And that isn't always an easy thing, and it's not always possible. So while we have done some equity reviews, it is incumbent upon the director of the division to ensure that their budget can accommodate an equity review. And I think where we get to, and I think will be an important element of the conversation, especially with divisions that have had vacancies, continue to have vacancies, and for those that are experiencing vacancies in areas that they haven't before, like in our engineering division. And I think those are good, hard questions, and it is a reality of personnel resources that the city is having to deal with.
Mr. Chair, that's something that we really need to talk about during this budget section, because it doesn't make any sense to keep doing the same thing we've been doing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. We got to have, that's exactly what it is, the definition for insanity. But we've got to be able to attract people so that our city can run like it needs to run. And we can't expect to get talented people to do what we want to see done in our city for our citizens, and they so deserve it, and give them kibbles and bits. We really need to talk about that. We need to get those reports. They need to talk to us about what they like to see rather than just what they can afford at this time.
Well said, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Chairman Jones.
Thank you, sir. Since the November trip that we took to National League of Cities, I've been on this big thing about federal grants. I had a
6% catch your eye.
So, I mentioned this in my meeting with the mayor, and he responded by sending me a list of individuals throughout the city and there are 49 individuals across 17 divisions. And so with the allocation that we have for federal grants essentially going down by half, I don't know how I'm going to position this, but colleagues, I want you to keep in mind, we are setting a budget for the next mayor, for the next administration, for those of you that survive me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say election.
Those that will be here after Councilman Covette, Councilman Morgan, Councilman Robinson, and I are gone. So if there was a time to set a direction for this city, I don't want us to sit back and just say, well, this is what we got. I want us to be more ambitious than that. So, to that standpoint, if we have, and granted, some of the names I saw on this list, I know that they have more on their plates than to go after federal grants. But you can have, based upon this $9.5 million figure here, I'm still saying if we had a grants department, we can have a grants department of people dedicated. If we got 17 divisions, 17 individuals, one individual can go out and probably pay for the whole. Now, granted, there are certain applications of it, but we can have a certain individual paying for their positions as well as everybody else in that grant division by doing that. So, I'm going to, I guess Ms. Smith isn't here. I don't know whether we set up a whole division of grants, or we embed it within the existing divisions that we have. But if we're looking at all of these challenges, and to fund a lot of this is come from local taxes. I know that there are federal grants that can take the burden off of everybody to do so. But we can't just accept that what we've done in the past 8 years and have a budget the way that we've done it in the past 8 years if we want to go in a different direction. So, I just wanted to point that out to have, and like I said, I'll share the list with you all, 49 individuals. I know you all have more on your plates to do. we need to have either a grants division, a dedicated grant person that all they do when they get here from at 8 o'clock in the morning, they leave at 4:30. You're right. That's all that they're doing. So that's going to relieve us somewhat. Now, is it going to be the panacea? No, it's not. But it's for us to look at a nearly $800 million budget, and there could be federal grants embedded in other places. But I still think, if it is, tell me. So I just think that we are missing the ball based upon a couple of conferences that I've attended.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. And I think we kind of touched a little bit on this last year when we started talking about grants. At the end of FY22, we had $200,991,733 in active grants in divisions across our city. Some of our divisions do have people that specifically work on grants. I know police has a couple, fire has a couple, I think engineering has one. But yes, for the rest of us, where we're looking for small grants for things, there is an opportunity there, absolutely. I have a grants compliance team that rolls up into the finance division. There are about 7 people on that team, and they're compliance. So they're just trying to make sure that the 200 million we have or 201 million we have is in compliance with the requirements of the grants. So I agree with you, and we've discussed this, a couple of times. And again, it's a matter of priorities and where we can move in that direction to see if there is opportunities there to help us look at grants in other areas. I could tell you, Director Pugh, Alexis Pugh, has probably looked at every grant related to an animal that there is possible under the sun. And I don't know if she's here or not.
Yes, she is.
But I can tell you, and oftentimes they, when divisions think they might have, well, here's an opportunity, they will send it to legal and to grants compliance to make sure that we have the legal parameters related to that. I received a grant one time that if they would buy us 1 ambulance if I bought 7. Well, that doesn't really help me, but it helps me with 1, right? If I can't buy 7 all at one time. So there are some grants that, that we do look at to try to do that. But I think it is certainly an opportunity in an area where we could look at additional resources and revenue coming into the city to assist us in areas. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and when I responded to the email, I asked the mayor, and I go back to what does my email say? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. What he wasn't able to provide me is a measurable to essentially say, okay, well, I think it would be easy. This division, this is how much, or this individual, this is how much, and people be measured on that. I think that we probably, in a city with 650,000 people, I know we can find talented people to help us in that department.
And thank you. I think one of the requests of the finance division was a breakout specifically related to grants. And our grants manager, our grants compliance manager, Crystal Givens, is prepared to talk about the areas and divisions where we currently have grants, so that you can see the dollar value related to those specific grants.
Yes, sir. Most helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on here in a second. Couple notes. I asked for appropriation statements to come with these. And I don't know that we got them, but I'll get them. Here's why we're doing budget this way, because to your point, you guys are wrapping up some things, and I wanted more time. I'm going to say, I do mean this very respectfully. We are part-time with limited staff, not responsible for the administration of government, but responsible for its appropriations. We are making decisions on information that is provided to us in whatever capacity it's really provided. And so for me and others, and some people dig in more and some people dig in less, and that's fine. But ultimately, it can be hard. Like Councilman Morgan, I think, as long as I've been here, has been trying to track down attrition numbers, right? Like actual compliments, hires. And I know it's more complicated than we're going to hire one person, because you've got people that leave in the middle of the year and you've got part-time, all that stuff. But it's very hard to get your head wrapped around a business that you don't operate day in and day out. But those appropriations and statements help greatly to understand some of the flow for these service centers, specifically in large divisions like executive, right? Like the executive division does more than I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, that's the mayor's 7th floor office. And like, that's not really it, you know? And so like animal services is in there. And we had a big, long conversation about MAS last time. So I'd like to see those. I know it's going to be a large file. I'm happy to be patient and wait for them, but I'd like to have them in the next couple of weeks so that I can spend some time with them by the time we get to wrap up. Because to pretty much everybody's point, every business is dealing with inflation. Every business is dealing with a constricted labor market. Every business is dealing with training and retention. And every business is trying to figure out ways to cut costs in smart areas, raise revenues in others, and be as efficient as possible. I know it is a hallmark of Mayor Strickland to try and get through 8 years without a property tax increase. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, I don't have any issue with that. I think that's it's a very admirable thing to try and do. It would not have happened if not for the financial diligence of his team, and they should be lauded for that. But also federal funds and the sales tax referendum were huge helps. But those are restricted to what they can do. And so, this council, to Councilman Morgan's point, is either going to have to respectfully disagree with where the mayor's priorities are and ours and make the appropriate changes to the budget, or we're going to have to find ways to get more revenue. And that's basically it. And so it's really hard to do that in any meaningful partnership with the administration if you don't really know the downstream impacts, like public service corps, like what all is in there and where are they spending it and how is it working. So that's my hope as we go through budget season, which is why we've tried to keep the upfront presentations shorter to have more time to digest the information and come back later, so that we can, and in fairness to the administration, so this can be a smooth ending, so it's not what happened in, I think, 2014, where like 6 individual budgets came out. It's a total chaos. So those are my general remarks. I think we spent a lot of time here over the last 3 or 4 years talking about the things that are important to the council, and most of them are right there with the administration. Like, we're just going to have to determine how important those are this year and see if you can find 6 friends to come along with you. Because we've talked about MATA, we've talked about affordable housing, we've talked about parks, we've talked about community service. We have a new library, which we're going to get into. JB and I both noticed, and with staff, $122,500 on 9 positions is an average salary of $13,000. I'm sure some of that's part-time. Q4. A ramp up.
It's not coming up until
so annualized out, it's 4 times that. Yeah, 40 grand. I got you. My point is just making sure that those big bucket items, I think Joan said it, setting the tone for where we want to go. When Chattanooga pledged $30 million to its affordable housing trust fund to lever private capital. So that's where we're at. I am very appreciative of the work and the partnership over the last few years, specific to the debt structure and the long-term obligations has been a feat. When are we going to hear about the long-range capital planning? Or else, I don't know, are we calling it capital planning?
It is a long-range strategic plan.
Strategic plan.
And yes, Deputy Chief Adams, I keep wanting to call him Director Adams.
How many titles you got back there now?
I know. Has been working and in conjunction with John Zena, All World, which has been helping us do facility assessments to see where we are. So I had really hoped we would be ready by budget time, but there was just a lot to do that. But we think within Q1 of FY24 that we'll be presenting that, and it's a lot of buildings. I think sometimes, even though when I sit up here and talk about CIP and we have 59 fire stations and we have blah blah blah, you don't realize also how old some of them are and the needs and assessments of them. So that's part of what we're bringing in. You think that's fair, Q1? Yeah. So Q1, we have a preliminary, but it just needs to be fleshed out a little bit.
I'm okay with that. I'd really, really like to see, and I know you're gonna tell me what you're gonna try, and it probably won't happen because you're still gonna stick to Q1. If we get a high level in June, that would be, I mean, in budget, I'll try and keep everybody from getting too deep down in the weeds, but out of courtesy, it'd be nice to have a high level, and we'll show you the courtesy of not trying to dig too far into it till it's ready.
Fair.
Councilor Chairman Jones.
One other thing, Ms. Ford, the value of a penny.
We will bring that to you in my finance division presentation. I know it's important, and I always thought about, you just go ahead and throw it in on the overview, right? But yes, sir, we'll be bringing that to you because that is an important number. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, let's take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or you guys want to push on through?
Like break.
All right, let's reconvene at 5:15. I hereby call the Budget Committee back into session. Colleagues, Councilman Warren was just asking me about what we're trying to do here. Again, the idea is to listen, take notes, ask questions, kind of reflect on it, and then try and, I mean, this, just because this is the executive division's time to present doesn't mean it's the last time you're going to see them. We can always change the schedule. We can call people back in. We are getting started early enough this year, and then our third reading is, what's our third reading? June 17th? Second, what? The second? Either way, we got all June to deal with it, okay? So don't feel anxious that if you don't get your question in or we forget something that we can't make sure to get it answered. We want to make sure that, especially given this year, that with everything that's going on, council members getting more comfortable, we've got a transition in the mayor's office, all of those things are flushed out and everybody feels comfortable by the time we take the vote on the third and final reading. With that ramble finished, we are in the executive division. Chief Ryan, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shandell Ryan, Chief Operating Officer for the City of Memphis, 125 North Main Street. Thank you all for the opportunity to present the city's budget. I'm going to try to keep looking this way. It's hard. I have a crook in my neck, so sorry if I sometimes don't turn this way. I apologize for that. But thank you all for the opportunity to present today. Joined at me at the table is our budget coordinator, Pam Kane, and also Deputy Chief Operations Officer, Antonio Adams, who I'm appreciative of both of them, and thanks to Antonio for stepping up to take on a lot of additional roles during this this time that we find ourselves in. So if you turn to the first slide, that is our organization chart, and to the point of the chairman, budget chair's comments earlier today, our organization chart shows how many different departments we have. Yeah, just use the arrow. Okay. Yep. All right, so we have 13 service centers that's a part of the executive division and includes the mayor's office, the COO's office, the communications office, and you see other various offices listed there. And yes, it does include the Memphis Animal Services Department, as well as GVIB, 311, internal audit, and just the others that are listed there. I won't get in trouble for naming them all. So on the next slide, this just talks about what will be accomplished as a part of our budget request for next year for FY24. We're going to continue the youth program where we are developing youth with hard skills and life skills for about 2,300 of Memphis youth. That includes the summer youth program, the I Am Included program, and the math program, which are, those two are both year-long programs. Also, we will continue the Memphis Public Service Corps, where we provide part-time employment and training opportunities with those individuals that are a part of the Corps. We will also increase the work experience and skill sets of men and women through our Manhood University and Women Offering Women Support programs. We're planning to serve over 4,200 families through our Pet Resource Center, which is done by our Memphis Animal Services to provide pet owners with resources like food, pet food, and medical care and behavioral training. We also intend to expand participation in the group violence intervention program with hospital interventions, street interventions, youth programming, and also ongoing support services and focused deterrence. So moving to our expenditure discussion, I'm going to speak about our FY23 expenditure bridge to FY24 request. So if you see in our personnel services, there's an increase of about 4.2%. That includes the pension and healthcare increases as well as the raises. The 2% proposed raises are there. There's a small increase for overtime for the Memphis Animal Services. She also has some positions covered by the associations, so their increases are found in that section as well. Also on materials and supplies, there's about a 4.4% increase, and that involves basically fuel shop charges. There are some expenses for fuel and shop charges, and for some increases that we see in medical supplies for animals that you will find there. And our grants and subsidies is staying flat for an overall budget request of $23,685,060. So moving to slide number 7. So this slide tells the overall adopted budget for each of the 13 service centers that are part of the executive division. You see the increase there in the mayor's service center. That's mainly because the salaries are parked there. We have to park them in one service center, and then we, throughout the year, break out the increases to salaries into the specific service centers that relate to those increases. So that's the increase that you see there. Another one of note is the increase in the animal services. That's part of what I spoke about with the animal care and medical supplies and some of the fuel shop charges that are found in that division, in that service center as well. And you see increases in communications and in GFIP, and they relate to some of the same things with the shop charges and there's an increase for in communications for some programming around the advertising expense that we'll talk more about as a part of the presentation when we move forward. So looking on slide 8, this is our FY discussion of year-over-year changes in expenditures. So again, you'll see in the personnel services category where the potential raises equal about $216,000. We see also the expenses in healthcare and pension, healthcare $125,000, pension about $154,000, full-time salaries. That $159,000 decrease that you see in full-time salaries, that is based on some ISLs that happened last year. That's just moving the dollars to the appropriate place. That actual line is an ISL line, so that's just removing it from that place to actually reduce it out of the budget, because now it is found in the full-time salaries line. There's an increase in part-time salaries. That's to support the Memphis Animal Services Department. Also, some additional overtime for the Animal Services Department as well. And in the next category, materials and supplies, you'll see some of the things that I spoke about. The city shop charges have gone up about $33,000. We see also the advertising and publication that I mentioned earlier. There's also some computer software needs where we're projecting a $17,000 increase there. And then you see the medical supplies and the materials and supplies increases for the Animal Services Department, which make up $115,000 and $125,000 respectively. So on to the revenue discussion on slide number 10. Mainly these revenues come into the Memphis Animal Services Department. We expect to see an increase in licenses and permits. That's just based on the volume of animals that we are experiencing. So we expect there to be a slight of an increase happening there. We're staying flat with the shelter fees and the outside revenue revenues there. And in other donated revenues, you see a decrease there. There was a 1 year we had a large donation that occurred in that line, and this is just to flatten it out. We're not sure what we will get in donations next year. We hope that we'll see some revenues come in, but we're not projecting any at this time. So on slide 11, that just breaks out again more of the changes in revenues that I just discussed. So I'm going to move forward.
I could see faces and energy around this diocese, and before we dive down the rabbit hole, we've got it tomorrow.
So slide 14, it basically shows no change. There's no ISL being requested for FY24. So the authorized complement is what we are requesting to maintain. On slide 15, you will see what our total complement is and the complement for each of the service centers for a total of 134. We currently have 2 vacancies that we show in the animal services, and there are 4 grant-funded positions that are shown there. Now, since this time, we've had a couple of vacancies occur within the mayor's office, but this is just at the time of the slide. That's, of course, a dynamic number.
Before we slide on, how are you treating some of these positions? Take Antonio, for instance. He's still the director of general services, but he's serving in this interim capacity. Is that an accurate statement?
He is serving as the deputy chief. He is yes, he is still the we have an interim director, but he's still serving. He, being Antonio Adams, is still serving to help support general services through the transition. So he's supporting their office.
Okay.
Right. He's doing both.
I'll talk to you more offline. I just want to understand it. I mean, here's to the point. He's doing multiple things, and eventually, like I said, when the next mayor gets in, both of those positions will be different, right? They'll be filled, so to speak.
Correct.
It's not like there's a fungible, can't get too cute, right?
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. Okay. So moving to slide 17, thank you. This slide shows our major M&S expenditures, with the bulk of our professional services being in miscellaneous professional services at $3.5 million. Much of that has to do with the work that we're doing in the GVIP program, but you also see what our spend is in advertising and publication. We also have in our auditing department the additional talent that's needed to help support that division as well. I'll also highlight the medical supplies. That's basically for the Memphis Animal Services Department and the work that they do there.
Thanks for the super detailed accounting professional services of various vendors. Will you get me a list of various vendors for lobby, state, federal, and policy constituents by name or company? Yeah, I mean, just, if you want to email it, that way the whole body can have it. It's just hard when you look at $500,000 and their contract could be $7,500 a month. It could be a retainer, I don't know, but we have just trying to understand, especially in that bucket, who's out there and doing what. And I think the public, to some degree, and I know a lot of those contracts are posted.
Yes, they are. Yes, sir.
But again, they're hard for us to go and find.
Sure.
So if we just have somebody, and even if you just want to direct our staff where to go, if they, but if you could send me a list of those vendors.
I'll be happy to provide you those names.
Before we hop off that page, does anybody want to see any other information on the professional services line? That's page 18. All right.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead, Jency.
just looking at a breakdown too, advertising, publication as well.
All right, so Chairman Jones would like
That's on
to.
17.
Yep. Chairman Jones would like to see, you want to see firm or consultant?
Yep.
Yeah. Firm, like if we use DCA or for
For the same,
for advertising. So you got, yeah, so you got various vendors on collateral production, video. Yeah.
I would be happy to provide names.
Yeah.
I would definitely do
Perfect.
that.
Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. Thank you, Chairman Jones. Sorry for the kind of the interruptions. I'm hoping it smooths this out towards the end. All right, Chief Ryan.
Thank you. On slide 19, I see a typo. Thank you, Chief Ford, for pointing it out. It says Finance Division, but I'm looking at Pam Kane. This is the correct one for.
Yeah, she said we gotta.
I think there's just a typo.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a typo.
Yeah. But the so
We're gonna find out soon enough.
No, this is the.
this is the correct slide.
All right.
Okay, just making sure. So that should say executive, not finance. But this is our MWBE spend for FY for December 31st of 2022 and FY23. So you'll see our certified MBE spend is 62.23%. WBE is 3.81%. MWBE is 66.04%. So overall, total certified and non-certified WMB spend, MWBE spend is 76.32%. And that is our presentation. Any questions?
Gonna have Councilman Smiley in the queue.
My markup stuff. Okay. So
Vice Chairman Smiley, the floor is yours.
I have a question, particularly as it relates to CLERB. I know the council passed an ordinance specifically speaking to CLERB, but there was also legislation in the State House that talked about essentially dismantling CLERB and creating, I guess, a new community oversight advisory panel, whatever the people in the state legislature was attempting to do. So I guess my question is, there in the budget now, I think is about $400,000 budgeted for it. So does the administration plan to reorganize what we now call CLERB into, so it is currently in compliance with state law, or what are we gonna do? Because there's $400,000, and I would love to use $400,000 to do something else if y'all not gonna do it, or actually create something that actually works.
So CLERB it houses 3 positions. So our intention was to, remain with those same 3 positions and to operate the CLERB board much like it operates now. I believe the current law, the new incoming law, is not much different than how our CLERB currently operates, I believe.
Is this technically CLERB, or is this a placeholder name until we?
Chief.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I just want to know now.
So what we are requesting is, we are requesting the same level of funding, and we are requesting a legal opinion to describe what and enumerate the powers that the legislature described in its new legislation that provides CLERB. We do have 3 employees that are currently actively working, and so what we will do is, once we enumerate those that authority, then we will reorganize, and then we'll refocus what their direction will be. But it is our intent to continue to operate as such.
Okay.
Under that authority. So we are working with the assigned city attorney, assistant city attorney.
So is this going to be an opinion that we actually adopt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sure Sam Hardeman would appreciate this.
Yeah, so I think, Director Adams, I mean, look, I hear you. No one's trying to say let's fire 3 people, but if they can't function in the capacity in which they're supposed to, we can find somewhere in City Hall or in our government, in our workforce, where they can be more benefit. But to that point, who has the opinion been requested? By whom, of whom?
There we go.
And then when do we get to hear it in Chairwoman Logan's committee? Because I have directed Ms. Wilson, who is the leader of clerk currently to seek that of the assigned senior assistant attorney to seek that opinion so that we understand what that legislation is. Because again, it's new. So we don't know. And as opposed to guessing, so we are waiting to get more guidance.
Do we know if the opinion, if we have officially requested the opinion? Because I'm trying to determine if this body needs to take some type of action, if we need to request the opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to JB's point, like, I mean, are we asking an opinion of the state attorney general? I mean, like, are we?
That's
like,
where the opinion is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
She has of the senior assistant attorney, and then of course I will follow up to see if that opinion has been sought of the state attorney general. So I will follow up with you.
So this is not necessarily clerk, but it's something so that we can keep the current people employed and assuming we're able to utilize them in a beneficial way for the city of Memphis.
Correct. I mean, CLERB or that organization in some shape, form, or fashion will operate. So again, and that's what I explained to the employees, of course, because you can understand that there is a level of anxiety. Of course, you got three people.
We'll find. There are plenty of things to do around here.
Of course. Yeah. So again, I mean, prior to they understood, and again, so we had that responsible conversation with the three employees to let them know that upon passage, we will seek the opinion. And then, of course, once we get the opinion, we will then understand what the responsible course of action will be. We will operate as normal until then.
Well, that's all for me because Chairman Carlisle said no more questions.
No, that's not exactly how I said it. Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to recommend, once you hear from them, that the current chairman of the board and administrator, or the clerk, I'm sorry, be consulted. You know, he came and he met with us before us and gave his opinion on how it could work best. And I know the administrators, been working as well. So I think once we get the opinion, then looking for the best solution within there, I would hope that he would, be able to comment on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're correct. I mean, we owe a responsibility to the board as well. So again, there's a conscious effort to make sure that we notify the employees, but then most importantly, the board as well. So,
and the public. I mean,
yes, sir.
I mean, there's as you may have seen a couple of meetings, they were very interested.
Absolutely. Is there a timeline there?
So, I mean, again, with the legislation being so new, again, I think my request to Ms. Wilson was maybe a week and a half ago. So we'll meet and I'll come back to you with a timeline in which we can expect something.
Councilwoman, is it all? You're good. I think Councilman Smiley has got one more or two more time. We got time.
First of all, I would like to know that Chairman Carlisle said we have time. Second of all, top of question specifically about the communications. I guess my question specifically is, as it relates to funding, this.
They're coming. We're gonna go.
So Chase, Councilman Carlisle, he's telling me I'm doing.
You're coming next.
Are you next?
Yeah. So, guys, we're going to try and go COO's office, community affairs, communications, and offices of youth services on your schedule.
Absolutely. See you in a second.
All right. Any question on the top line? Councilwoman East Chalmers.
Thank you, Chair. Is 311 included in community affairs?
311 is a separate service center. They are not.
So they aren't included in any of the ones we're going to hear from next?
311 is was not on the budget schedule separately, but they are as a part of the executive budget. This is something different that the budget chair.
So,
Okay.
but what I will offer to any member, again, the way that we try to balance the schedule, if there is I'll call it a service center department that you want to hear from, and that's why and it's my fault, we got these out a little late, email, and we will find a time to get them on or back on. So
Okay.
we have plenty of time.
That's my request for 311.
You got it.
And yeah, just to see if we have an adequate amount of people, because 301 is also another division that we get a lot of citizen complaints about, either folks, not answering or closing out items that shouldn't be closed out. And so if we have data that shows they're doing a best job that they can, that's different than if it's data showing that 311 needs some help, and then maybe we need to find monies for an additional folks in 311.
So I'm going to make two suggestions. One, we'll get them on the budget schedule, and two, it's been a long time since we've had them on a Tuesday agenda, which I know this is kind of a tough time of year to do it. I don't even know what's going on with the app. I remember downloading the app. It didn't work very well. It may have gotten better, but we probably should bring them back. Councilwoman,
may I make a quick statement there? I just want to take note for the budget presentation. We present them as a part of executive, so their budget dollars are here. So if you look at page 7, you'll see their budget dollars there, and you'll see their complement on page 15.
Yeah, I saw that,
well.
but
Okay.
it don't make sense if it's the same complement and they're not doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So if they need more help, they complement need to change.
I think
is what I'm asking.
What Councilwoman Thomas is saying is exactly what she's saying, which is digging in deeper with Steve, with his team, just like we've done with Robert and his team on how code enforcement works, right? So we can have a better understanding. And for the public, Councilwoman Thomas brought something up that I heard a lot of complaints before, and sometimes we have to be reminded, and the public does, where there may be one pothole that gets 31 service tickets, and they close 30 of them because they don't need one of them, and the one service ticket stays open until it's actually fixed. And the problem is that 30 people receive a note saying that it's been closed out, and they don't realize, and so they get upset saying, well, I just drove by that same pothole and it hasn't been fixed yet. That's a big flaw in how the ticket system works. But often, I think, and that frustrates people. And so it's just, I think having that conversation on a Tuesday may be helpful. And then coinciding with that, we can have more of a cents and dollars conversation on the budget. Is that cool? Yeah. Because I had the fun, and also like on a Tuesday, getting the data, like how much of the breakdown is the call center versus using our platforms, like our online ticketing system, right? And who's using that? Is it working? Like one of the things I think that Mayor Strickland did was implement a bilingual portion to the call center, right? So just having a follow up on that system may be beneficial on a Tuesday meeting, and then we can take it up down the road in budget, I think is where we're at.
Be happy to bring you more information about their metrics.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And again, for what it's worth, this was, that program was in place, and you wish all enterprise systems worked perfectly and were, B2B and B2C. And this one, I mean, there's never a perfect fit when you're trying to manage that kind of back of house enterprise system. I mean, they're problematic. Councilwoman Logan, did you have something else?
I did.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to ask about communications as well as Public Service Corps. I asked about Public Service Corps first because it was a topic of discussion during the task force.
They're gonna present those individual
communications as well.
Communications is fourth on our list, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then I've got an Office of Youth Services or Community Affairs will have Public Service Corps at least. That's how I'm gonna go with that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Let's do this. Let's speed through these next four. Let's do this. Let's run quickly, meaning, and I'll do my best not to do it either. Let's go Community Affairs, Communications, Office of Youth Services, and then we've got everyone in the room, and we can go rapid fire questions in the hot seat. All right? All right.
So I just want to mention that their budgets, we've already presented what's in their budgets. So that was a part of this. So this is, I would imagine, the Q&A part of the.
So each, I guess, part of executive is not presenting individually. This is the entirety of it, and we're free to ask questions to everybody who's in this room.
Correct, yes.
That's fine. I'm kind of disappointed. I mean, I'd like to hear from whoever is leading community affairs tell me, these are my priorities for community affairs, and this is why my budget is relevant and valid and necessary. I hadn't seen Ike Griffin in like 3 years. Is Ike still here? I mean, like, where's
I
Ike?
will take up Ike Griffin.
No,
He shows up
I'm not
from
trying to
time
be mean to
time.
Ike. I'm just saying, it's nice to see. It's nice to see people that are running these departments talk to the council about what they're up to on a daily basis in their department. That's what I do in our business. Like, I have a budget that manages 165 restaurants, and I've got operators and district managers, but I still want to talk to the general managers to see how they're running their store every day. That was the intent of trying to get these broken down, and that may be on me for not communicating that as well.
Mr. Chair, I'll tell you exactly the reason why, and it's happened over the years, is because all these different, I guess, division directors and then kind of miniature division directors or smaller divisions within divisions, they all have a request from the mayor as they're putting together this budget. It is always over budget, and then it is culled back and presented with a single vision from the administration. And when we get each individual kind of director or kind of miniature, I don't know how to say it, mini director in front of us, we start getting, this is what I need, this is the request. Of course, I can't get it done with this amount of money, you know, and so it becomes chaos. So they're trying to, maybe prevent us from hearing a lot of different opinions about what the budget should be.
A structural problem for how it works. I'm not.
I would like to clarify something. The budgets are presented on a division level, and this is the executive division's budget. I've not seen where we've had a service center present on a service center level. So maybe that's a misunderstanding that I had, because we've never done a crosswalk at a service center level. It all rolls up to the division, and division is responsible for the overall budget.
But
just like in Public
totally.
Works, there's several service centers within Public Works.
Yeah, but his is crazy. Like, he's got all the money. Robert's got all the money. But you have to understand, like, I hear what you're saying, but if you think about our division is smaller than half your service centers. And when you think about it all being in the executive division and then what these service centers actually do, like the amount of touch points that community affairs has out in the public and what we're spending, the amount of public interest in GVIP over the last 3 years and what they're actually doing, these are the things in which the 13 of us get constantly asked about how we're funding them, what's going on, what the priorities are going to be. And for me, that's a budget season. Like, I want to know how my managers are going to run their ship that year. How are they going to increase performance? What are the things they're doing actually in their service center to improve their departments to justify the budget? And to Councilman Morgan's point, somebody may hear something and say to themselves, I really like what I'm hearing. I really like what this director has planned. How do I support them more? And I know we try to do that in coordination with the administration ahead of time, but if we did all that ahead of time, we wouldn't need budget hearings. It'd just be rubber stamping. So it was in an effort to have a more, especially when you've got some council members that have been here. I know Jana's just got here, but she's a damn good listener. She's pretty smart. Pretty smart whip down there. She gets it pretty quickly. But you've got members that have been here 8 years that really understand what's going on. We're now, the 2019 class is in our 4th season, so we're starting to understand it better, especially after 2 years of COVID. And we want to take a more proactive role, especially since we're transitioning one mayor out and into another. We want to ensure that Mayor Strickland's legacy and his administration matches with what the council wants to do as we move into the next administration, because to Chairman Jones's point, some of us, if we survive, we'll be here through both. And so it's critical that your priorities match our priorities. And it's hard to do that, as I said in the beginning, when we're part-timers with very little visibility into the day-to-day operations, but we're the ones getting a lot of phone calls and emails and questions about what these certain groups are up to. So I guess what I'll do is let's keep going with questions that people have today, and then I think tomorrow I'm going to get with Chairman Jones and maybe Chairman Morgan, who had budget before, and we'll chat about how maybe we rethink the next few budget hearings. We may push some things back just so we can get on the same page. Everybody wants it to be beneficial. The reason I try to streamline things today is to cut out the fat and just get to the meat. I've got Vice Chairman Smiley, and then I'll go back to Chairwoman Logan or Councilwoman Logan, because I know she had questions for communications and I think OYS.
Councilman Robinson as well. She's
all right. Go ahead, Jimmy.
All right, so since it's rapid fire questions, I would love to hear from Ms. Fouché. I think when we talk about communications, I think at some point either, I don't know, I think all of my days are one big, long day at this point. But at some point, this council had a presentation from Memphis Brand Initiative specifically speaking about how to drive the narrative of Memphis in light of a lot of the bad press and PR the city of Memphis received, I guess since Mr. Kelly, then Eliza Fletcher, and then the unfortunate situation with Mr. Nichols. So when I talk about communication specifically as it relates to this budget, I want to make sure we're allocating appropriate funding so that we can truly tell the real story of Memphis as opposed to the story that's being told in the news media, which is a very negative perception of the city that we all actively are choosing every single day. So want to hear a presentation or whatever you have prepared today to speak to, what are we doing in terms of PR and communications to drive the narrative that we really want to tell about the city of Memphis.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm going to have Andy bring up a presentation. I'm a marketing person, so I'm always prepared with a presentation.
Director Fouché, would you give us your title and name and title for the record?
Allison Fouché, Chief Communications Officer, 125 North Main. And so I want to start off with the Communications Department was formed. Some of you familiar with government, some have not been. This department was formed in 2016 when Mayor Strickland came in and wanted a more streamlined approach to communications, marketing. Did it come out? Okay, well, I guess we can't pull it up. Okay. And so we've been in existence since 2016. We started out with four people, and we now have 15. Our department has grown over time, but there's been a need for some of the things that we provide as a service on the service center level. Okay, so the mission of our department is to provide strategic counsel, public relations, creative solutions for all City of Memphis divisions. Some of our responsibilities are overseeing media relations, that means writing and distributing news releases, responding to media inquiries, promoting all programs to increase attendance, visibility, and brand awareness of the City of Memphis. We manage the website, social media, and large events. We create marketing materials, all the flyers and brochures, newsletters, mailers, all those things that you see. My staff creates those. I have a staff of creative graphic artists that work on those materials as well. And we also find opportunities for advertising, and we conduct media buying. My staff is broken up into 4 segments. I have public affairs and public relations. So I have a public affairs manager and a coordinator and a communications specialist. Internal communications, I have an internal communications and engagement manager. Creative services, I have 2 graphic artists. The print shop is under creative services with a supervisor and 2 print shop operators, and marketing and advertising. I actually have welcomed back my marketing manager. He left government for Blue Oval, but he came back. And today was his first day coming back. So the grass is not always green on the other side. I think that he saw that we are a good place to work. I thought that he said that today. He said, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I like working in government. I like being a part of what we're doing. We are bringing attention to the things that matter in this city. So, I hear a lot of attrition, but I think that we can also win people back, because that's what happened to me. And we have a digital content coordinator. So since inception, we manage all our social media pages. So, for instance, Facebook, we've had a growth of almost 50% with our Facebook platform since 2016. Instagram, the growth has been, my glasses, the growth has been 15%. We've gone from 6,000 followers to now 34,000 profile visits. LinkedIn, same thing here. All of our platforms have grown exponentially because we have been able to post content and engage with the public online using our social media platforms. Our Nextdoor platform, we're in the homes of 142,996 people in the city. So whenever we post things to Nextdoor, whether it's a traffic street cutoff, or is it something that we need to get out to that particular community, we use Nextdoor, and that's been growth there as well, with us being in almost half of the homes in our community. Media impressions. Of course, we've gotten a lot of negative press lately, to the tune of, within the last 2 years, $1 billion of online publicity, some of which is negative. We subscribe to Critical Mention, which I'm able to see those impressions on a regular basis, and I can also see negative public sentiment, how online, what social media is saying as well. So we monitor that every day, and I see what's going on. And I wish I was able to pull up.
You didn't know you was gonna present to us today.
But I pull up this. Okay. But I wanted to use an example of library and park attendance. Since 2016, our library attendance has increased 103%, and that is due to marketing. That's us marketing programs, creating flyers, posting it on social media, getting the word out, sending out electronic newsletters so that our customers can know what we are doing, so that they can come to different programs. Youth attendance has increased by 106%, and I have the numbers, and I can share these with you. But the same thing with parks. Athletic participation has increased 300%. A lot of this has to do with us being able to market effectively and to do outreach through, whether it's a commercials. We have had the opportunity to use have an advertising budget. So if there's like a parks program that needs attention, I'm able to create a commercial with my team, because we have on the second floor. I don't know if you all have had the opportunity to see this. On the second floor, we have a studio on the second floor. I'm able to produce content, edit videos, create videos, do podcasting. I'm able to do just about anything that a public relations firm can do on the second floor with our studio. So I think that our department was developed because we didn't need to streamline comms within the city of Memphis. I think we've done that successfully. I think with my staff, I wish I had more people, because I could reach, have more arms to reach more. But I think we've done a great job in getting the word out on programming, and also with the negative things that are going on right now, we're able to control the message by having folks on staff able to submit messaging back on current events and things that are happening. So that's just all I have right now.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple of specific questions. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I don't speak for anybody on this body but me today. So I think we do a good job of getting the word out about existing programs in the city of Memphis. I think my question more so is externally, what are we doing to bring positive attention to the city of Memphis and its totality. And I know, try not to make a political statement.
Well, Memphis Travel
and then,
does a lot of that.
Okay, and then I'm talking about our communications department. And then when I talk about the city in its totality, I'm also talking about, I think, trying to figure out a good way to say it. I'm just going to say it. I think we do a good job of bringing positive PR to the mayor, but not necessarily positive PR to the city of Memphis. When folks tell the story of Memphis, when I travel, when I tell the story of Memphis, literally is always negative at this point. It's always negative, especially since I've been traveling the recent months. What I want to know is, what do we need to tell the story of Memphis, as whether we're talking about soul, whether we're talking about grit, whether we're talking about the positive things with the Grizzlies, whether we're talking about USFL, whether we're talking about 901 FC, whether we talk about the good things in Memphis, Sun Studios, Graceland, like good things in Memphis. I'm tired of the conversation.
You can't have a good story without bike lanes.
No doubt about it, baby.
Many people aren't able to get me to be quiet, but that's good. It's really good today. But I think, for me, you said you may need more staff. For me, I really want, because, this is the mayor's last term in office, I really want the communication, whether it's coming from the city of Memphis or whether we're partnering with another agency, to be focused on bringing positive attention to the city of Memphis. You spoke of, I think it was $1 billion in impressions. And I'm sure of that $1 billion, about 70%, at least since January, has been all
about
negative.
65% of that has been negative. Since,
Yes.
Yes.
And this is just a rough estimate off the top of my head. I know it's negative press, but that's not who we are as a city. I mean, there's isolated incidents.
Those are isolated
really bad
incidents, but on the flip side of how we handle those situations, we have been branded the blueprint for how we handle these situations. Those are isolated situations, but I think we handled that crisis effectively in how we were able to address it, get messaging out, tell the public what we're doing immediately so that they can understand that we were handling this situation as soon as we could. We could not control that situation, but I think with our crisis communications along with Chief Davis, we were able to keep the public informed on a real-time basis.
So I think we're in two different places here. So what you're talking about is managing issues within the city of Memphis. So we're talking about city of Memphis government organization. Issues, what I'm talking about is the city as a whole. What can we do to bring positive attention? I know there's been an article talk about Memphis is one of the best places for Black entrepreneurs. Like, what are we doing to help push that narrative in the community? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about Memphis in its totality, not just the city of government. So my questions specifically as it relates to this communication lines budget, are we talking about, increasing this budget so we can truly promote the city of Memphis? Because it's fine to promote government, but 25% of the population votes.
And
but
that's what our focus has been on, promoting government in our programs.
So how do we?
So if we're going to change the trajectory of the focus of how we communicate and focus, you're telling me now that's what you want.
That's what I would like to say. I can't speak for the council members are nodding their head. I think I think the city of Memphis, our government has to do a better job of telling the story of Memphis, not just the programming we do, not just, whether we're, trying to expand parks or we're trying to respond to a crisis or whether we're talking about budget. I think we have to tell the story of Memphis, and we define that. If we define it, I think we're moving Memphis out of this very negative time right now to a more progressive, positive view of the city of Memphis. I think we have to tell that story. I think we have to tell the story of Memphis itself.
We work in partnership with Memphis Travel, and I have a report that I can give that report to you on all of the positive stories that they pitch about Memphis. That's what Memphis Travel does. They're the Convention and Business Bureau. That's what they do on a regular basis, is pitch Memphis, do fam tours so that people can be familiar with city government. With city of Memphis. I am on that board, and we work in partnership with them. Memphis Brand, I have spoken with David French with Memphis Brand Initiative to get more of, we need some clear deliverables on how the money that we are spending is allocated and what we're getting for that. I'm not interested in just funding your organization. I'm interested in getting some positive media stories. We have had that conversation. If we continue to fund you, this is Memphis Brand Initiative, I need some clear deliverables. I need 5 national media stories that are positive that we can tout and share and with that. So I've had conversations with him on how we can leverage our relationship better so that we can get the kind of returns that we need.
So I spoke specifically of Memphis Brand, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Memphis Brand. I'm more focused on telling a positive story about the city of Memphis, and I think we have to do more than just promote our own programs or promote the elected officials. I think we have to do a job of promoting our city. And I'm looking at a budget. I think it may need to be bolstered a little bit, but I just think we need to expand our scope of thinking. I think right now we're limiting ourselves to, I'm only going to promote the existing things, as opposed to, we represent the city of Memphis, we should be promoting Memphis in its entirety.
But now that I hear that that's what you desire, we can work on a media plan and a marketing plan for just that.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I have some support on this body.
Yeah, look. Well, you've got buckets. Remember, you've got Memphis Tourism, which is funded out of the hotel motel tax.
Yeah.
So they're taxpayer funded. They're really the old CVB that's been rebranded. So their job is to sell convention business, tourism, barbecue, blues, rock and roll. The Memphis Brand was set up to sell positivity, workforce development and retainment. And then you got the chamber out there who's doing the, black tech thing, and they're more, again, workforce and business recruitment. And then you got like Choose 901 and some other people. So I think the issue you got is you got all these people out here doing all sorts of different kind of things, which is fine. I think for the chief communications officer of the city is she's going to have, and what I think Councilman Smiley is saying is, if you're going to use taxpayer dollars, somebody needs to be the umbrella organization that has an overarching guide that goes past the mayor's newsletter on every Friday. So I think that's, and I know I'm gonna give it to Councilwoman Logan because I know she's got some additional comments to that to some degree.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with my colleagues on everything, but I do know that there are different organizations. One thing Memphis has is a plethora of nonprofits and different organizations that are being funded to do certain things. And as Chairman said, if there was an overarching plan that included what you all do for here, and then everybody else, making certain that we're not overlapping and that monies that are going here is not double dipping and that type of thing, that would be great. And having one message that everybody speaks to from their perspective would be great. What I wanted to know is, because you are when I was asking about the communication, the budget, the task force met, and there were some specific things that came out of there as it relates to communications that I thought were really, really great ideas. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be in Director Kinnett's budget or if it was here, but I didn't see it here. So I wanted to mention it because some are not directly related to Public Works. But, and all of the team members from administration were amazing. They had so many great ideas. Mr. White, Ms. Neal, everybody. And I was glad that we were able to really just lay it all out. But as it relates to communicating with the citizens about what's going on and making certain that they're informed and that we communicate regularly and with clarity and saying one message, I think there was some great opportunities. And I wanted to know, first and foremost, when we bring it up 311, Director Zena had mentioned about they have making certain that there's one place for Memphians to go, and then everything else is done in the background, like what they do for Develop 901. I think that's what it is. Yeah, you have one portal you go to, and everything else is handled. That's the way 311 was meant to work, but now it has a lot of different things. So I wanted to know the 311 upgrade so that this is what was supposed to support a long-term plan for City of Memphis to rehabilitate and enhance 311 citizen portal should be a more user-friendly, constituent-based intake system that allows internal divisions to communicate with one another. And another thing that was stated was placing QR codes on I didn't see any funding, but so I don't know if it's in his or yours. So I'm asking, placing QR codes on all of the city vehicles and everywhere across the city where people can easily see how to properly dispose of waste, how to report blight and illegal dumping, 301 status of parcels. If there was a QR code on a yard sign in the yard, they can put the QR code and find out what the status of that property is, if it's vacant, if it's overgrown, if it's already been reported, things like that. There were some other out-of-the-box things that were brought up that could enhance, and they were directly related to communication. So I would like to see.
First time.
Okay, I would like to see some of that in there.
I would speak to that. So those kinds of measures, so if it's a public works initiative, it would be in the public works division. For example, Public Works has a communications person that typically works with our communications office if need be. But if it's just them putting a QR code on their placard, that would be something that they would specifically identify within their budget to fund those types of initiatives.
But hold on a minute. This is going to where, like, I think not the problem. Like, what I think we're trying to understand is, you have a 14-member team, but Public Works does something. They have their own communications person that kind of coordinates. So it's trying to understand what this 14-member team is actually doing for a division. Like, if each and every large division has their own communications team, then how big is the city's communications team?
Not every division has.
Yes. So this, again, we're trying to understand the city's communications operation. And this is the stuff that drives me nuts. And I'm not angry about it. I'm just saying, it's like we talk around it when I'm just saying, like, don't be technical with me, just answer the question. Like, how large is the city's communications team? So yeah, and like how long, like how many people is that?
So that, okay, I want to be very specific.
Yeah.
So there is what's in the budget for communications. So they have budgeted positions in their budget. And then there are these dotted lines and liaisons in some of the other divisions. Their budgets, though, are in those divisions.
Got it. I'm asking how many people handle communications in the city of Memphis government?
That's a good question.
With all the departments.
Not just under you.
Yeah.
But let's say Director Connect.
Yeah.
Director Connect has someone in communications. That person will be a communication person.
Yeah. How many total people?
Total, because we have
so we don't know.
In MPD.
Sure.
And we have several in MFD that report directly to those divisions.
Let's do it this way.
Okay.
You guys powwow together.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I think, and here's the deal. I'm not trying. I think we're trying to understand a little bit better. But again, when you say, like, let's just take the city of Memphis, that top line entity, not MFD or MPD's handle on Twitter. You've got, I would assume, one social media manager, right? For City of Memphis' official Facebook page,
correct.
Instagram, that's one social media manager.
Correct.
Okay. That's 1 out of 14. You've got, obviously, the chief and the deputy chief. I get what your jobs are. You're administrating. Now I'm down to 11 positions in the executive. Who's doing what?
I have 3 people in the print shop that report to me. They print everything, business cards, envelopes, signs, banners. Have 3 people, have a supervisor, 2 folks that handle those things.
Perfect.
I have a social media manager, what I call a digital content manager. I have a person that's a communication specialist that does proclamations and letters. I have a public affairs manager that she is the parks person. She's the person that liaisons with parks, but she also handles other special events and things for me. I have another public affairs person for libraries, and that's all she works on is libraries. Okay. I have 2 graphic artists. One is dedicated to nothing but library events and collateral. And then I have another one that handles all of city collateral.
So why, and this is a genuine question, so why would you have them assigned to your budget if all they're doing is dedicated to another division?
They do other things.
Okay.
They're the liaison for that area.
Okay.
But because we have the infrastructure to have graphic artists that can create collateral, so that's why it's all under one umbrella.
Got it.
They can create collateral. They can create social media posts that we can give to them so they can put on their dedicated platforms, because the library has their own social media as well as Parks has their own social media. So we're creating all the collateral and items, brand items that come out of that for them to share across platforms, not just the city of Memphis, but
that's very helpful.
So that we can also be on one brand, one brand, one sound, that everything can look the same. When I first came in, every division had its own thing going on and everything looked differently. Now everything looks cohesive in one brand.
Makes all the sense in the world.
So that's what is going on.
So one final question, is there, because I heard about these various people doing various things, is there anyone in your department that is tasked with specifically seeking out positive impressions, like positive news stories? Is anyone in your department doing that?
There's no one. We pitch stories, but there's no
not
one.
just. I'm not talking about.
But
No
there's no
shade,
one-
local media.
No,
Not
yeah,
just-
I don't think it doesn't sound like they're not equipped or set up for that.
Okay.
There's no
But,
one
like-
that's just pitching stories all day. We pitch stories, but that's not one person that's just dedicated. Like we pitch a library story. Like we have.
So when you say pitch a
Pitch a
pitching a
positive
story,
story.
so you're talking about pitching a positive story
Like
to
this
local
bookstop.
media or national media?
If it's book stock happening, okay, at the library, an author's event, Jenny will write a press release and we will pitch the media so that we can get media coverage for that. So again, we've been more focused on programs and happenings of what we are offering, services that we're offering. If there's a change in the waste schedule, promoting that to make sure people know. If there's a street closure, making sure people know that the street is closed. Though we've been more of the structure of government promoting what we offer. So now that I'm hearing there's a change of direction that you want me to go in, that's different.
Well, I don't speak for the entire council. I'm asking specifically for me. I don't know, I don't know what this body wants to see in terms of communications. Right now, I'm just trying to get a better understanding for myself personally. And I would advocate that we do more than just talk about programming within the city. I would advocate that we do more of talking about how can we change the trajectory of the city of Memphis going forward. And I think you do that by reaching outside of the city of Memphis, so people say, hey, Memphis is a great place to live. Memphis is a great place to eat. Memphis is a great place to travel to. That's my argument. And I think, once we dive deeper into this budget at a later date, I'm going to push for that. I'm going to say, colleagues, y'all love Memphis. We should be telling everybody to choose the 901. And hopefully I find 6 other votes to say, we need to find 6 other votes to say we need to put money where our mouth is. We can't talk about making the city of Memphis a better place if we're not willing to make it a priority on the list. And right here, it seems like we just don't care enough about talking about Memphis in a positive light.
May I make a comment there? Would it be helpful for us to bring in the tourism group?
Yes.
Tell Kevin Cam to come see me.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Look.
On a Tuesday, not budget.
Yeah, but here's the deal. CVB has been around. Look, you guys are welcome to go sit down. I mean, anybody can request a thing. The CVB is going to run you through their metrics, the things they participated in, the trade shows they go to, the media impressions. This has been a long-standing argument that has even been outside of government between the chamber and Edge on who is and isn't responsible for telling the story of Memphis, who is and isn't responsible for recruiting businesses. But I do think, Chief Fouché, that, and I think you are doing it, I think what Councilman Smiley is saying is he'd like the city to take an expanded role in right, like to your point, like we fund Memphis brand. Memphis Tourism has a board seat on Memphis brand, but in reality, who is advocating and pushing those government-funded entities to do more or meet more of a mission? And like I said, this argument has been going on since Richard Smith was at the chamber and there was a back and forth between he and Reed Dolberg, right? And like that, I mean, it just has. So I don't know necessarily that I'm going to fix and we're not going to do it tonight. But I'm going to move on because per the usual, she's always very patient and has waited quite some time and recognized Councilwoman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am looking at the program comparative spending, and we're talking about making Memphis look positive. This is what we've been looking at for the city's executive suite. So let's talk about what are our quality checks? Do we have scorecards? Because what concerns me on this chart is that I see two areas where we're spending a lot of money, but what are the results that we're getting from those dollars? So if you would go to the youth services, we're spending $5 million. Then we go down to animal services, we're spending $5 million. Then my concern is, I'm caring for animals as much as I care for children. You have to see the big picture, not just here, but we got to be able to tell the story to the public that looks at this. And then when we drop down to intervention program, we only spend $2 million when we got crime going up every day. But what's missing here is why do we need to spend those dollars in those areas, and what benefit has it been to the public, and how do I sell to my citizens that I'm spending more money on caring for animals, and it may be that I have been derelict in my duty and not spending it in the first place. But those are the kind of stories that we need to be telling in the communications department, because when you look at this and you're just any Joe Blow citizen, you're going, wow, y'all say you are important, but your dogs are even more important. We got to be very careful about our narrative, but we also need to know, how do we evaluate and measure what happens here so that the public can see what we're actually doing? Does that make sense? And I'm talking to my council members, not to the staff. We have to defend this in the public. Are we doing the right thing? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Colleagues, we are got a long day tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds like a long business.
Yeah, I'm not, this year, I'm not moving, I'm not going to move any division level budgets. I mean, there's no real resolution. These are going to be hearings, and then we'll deal with all of them and wrap up. No votes until we get there. That's how I want to do it. Colleagues, tomorrow we may have a quick discussion in budget about kind of how we proceed. I think these next few meetings. But anyway, it's been a long day. Chairman Jones, any final comments before tomorrow?
See everybody tomorrow.
All right. What time we've got a new schedule? Oh. No. 8. I think we're 8:30. 8:30 tomorrow. Okay.